Life sciences is currently going through a bit of a pivotal moment. Some of the blockbuster drugs and companies, they are going through a loss of exclusivity or patent cliff, as we call it. So some big drugs, including your weight loss, your oncology drugs, they'll run out of patent in the next 3 to 5 years. So you have to fill those gaps. Companies are running, they are on a race to say, okay, how quickly can they get their new drugs, blockbuster drugs, to fill those gaps? And that is where AI can come in, right? Especially over the last 5 years or so, the pace of innovation has been very slow with regards to coming up with new drugs.
Welcome to another episode of Advising the Advisors. I'm your host, Bolu from Kenley. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Chaitanya Royyuru, a partner at EY-Parthenon, where he leads key initiatives in mergers and acquisitions, digital transformation, and AI strategy, with a focus on life sciences, healthcare, and MedTech. Thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's just kick it off with, just from a high level, maybe explain your role at EY. Parthenon, the kind of organization you help, the kind of products you take on, and kind of change you drive at these organizations.
Yeah, so been with EY now for over 12 years. So typically what I do is I advise our corporates, private equity, and their portfolio companies across their transactions and value creation programs. So just to give you a flavor, when I say transactions, it means M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So it could either be separations or carve-outs or spin-offs, joint ventures or joint venture dissolutions or integrations, etc. So what I do is I come in just when a deal is about to be signed, and then I see them from sign to close, and then post day one, TSA exits, post-merger integrations, etc. So that's transactions. And then when it comes to value creation, it's all about transformation programs. Now, the current hype is all about AI, Gen AI. So I advise our clients on their AI strategy, their journey, implementation approach, etc. Then I also focus on data, so data maturity, data strategy, master data management, data governance, etc. And then increasingly, I'm doing a lot of work in sustainability. So helping companies get ready for reporting requirements from a regulatory point of view. And I've also picked up some projects on digital operating model, governance, and so on and so forth. So
Nice.
That's a broad range.
Yeah, and with a strong emphasis on life sciences and MedTech, you'd say, right?
That's true.
Nice. And has that been the same thing over the past 12 years at EY? So you came
absolutely.
in with this and just ramp up your expertise on over the past 12 years.
The way things happen is sometimes you are at the right place, right time.
Okay.
So I joined one of the big pharma companies as a holiday cover for a week on one of their biggest transactions.
Okay.
And then I was the last man standing after 2 years.
On the project,
I got tagged as, life sciences person.
Yeah.
And since then, one project led to another.
Yeah, and just became self-fulfilling.
And then pretty much, so it continued.
I like that.
So that's how it is.
Okay, so going to quote you a bit here, you recently had an appearance on the BioAsia 2025 stage, where you basically, again, to quote you was verbatim, embrace or perish was your word of caution to the industry. Do you have any thoughts there on how you think you're able to move organizations from caution to action in their assessment of the AI opportunity?
Yeah, so I think it's good to set the context, right? First and foremost, so one thing that was very clear in the BioAsia Summit is that the promise of AI is real. Yeah. And if you look at it across the value chain, there are enough and more use cases, right, from R&D, supply chain, commercial, that can unlock really good value, including back office functions. Now, as with any sector, so life sciences has its own challenges. One of them is huge regulatory pressures, right? Because ultimately in this sector, you're dealing with a human life, and that is, you can't get it wrong. So you have to be accurate all the time. And therefore, there is always this caution and a bit of a resistance to change and inertia. Now, having said that, so typically what happens is, first and foremost, I think the best way to think about is have a clear AI strategy in place by recognition of the immense potential of AI, because it is transformative in nature. And then once you think about the strategy, the whole bit is, how do you prioritize your top use cases that will unlock maximum value? So be ruthless in having clear focus on those use cases. Second, I would say is, get clear exec sponsorship. Okay. And then start small and scale. Basically, as you typically say, you crawl and walk before you run. So that's what you have to do. So that's what I'd say. Yeah.
Nice. I guess switching gears a bit to AI and M&A more broadly. Like, like, again, this is a very broad question. Everything from AI's impact in maybe the nature of deals and your structures. And then secondly, we'll speak more to like the internal tooling and how AI is helping in any of those workflows, whether it's in the due diligence or research workflows. So let's kick off like AI's impact in the M&A landscape in life sciences and medtech. Yeah, what's changed, if anything?
Yeah. So I think from before we get into M&A, so I'll share a bit of a trigger as to why there is a need, right? So life sciences is currently going through a bit of a pivotal moment. Some of the blockbuster drugs and companies, they are going through a loss of exclusivity or patent cliff, as we call it. So some big drugs, including your weight loss, your oncology drugs, they'll run out of patent in the next 3 to 5 years. So you have to fill those gaps, correct? Companies are running, they are on a race to say, okay, how quickly can they get their new drugs, blockbuster drugs, to fill those gaps? And that is where AI can come in, right? Especially over the last 5 years or so, the pace of innovation has been very slow with regards to coming up with new drugs.
Exactly.
Because,
Like, why?
yeah, what happens is typically a drug from discovery through to commercial launch
Okay.
typically takes 10 plus years, $2+ billion. Now, with the advent of AI and the promise of AI technology, both the time and cost could be down by more than 50%, in some cases up to 90% or more. So that's revolutionary and game changing.
Yeah. Sorry, is there any hypothesis as like what caused this like slowdown?
Well, it is basically what happens is any drug that you put in the market, it needs to go through your clinical trials. You need to understand the efficacy, the safety, ensure there are no side effects, etc. And pretty much it will address the cure.
Exactly.
It'll,
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah. But I
provide
mean,
the
like, this
cure.
has always been the case for in drug. There's something systemic. Maybe I think hypotheses are like, well, what happens systemically over the past like decade
I
or so?
think so. Basically, yeah. So this has been the case. Now, with advent of AI, what has happened is how quickly can you
Okay.
look at drug development? How quickly can you identify what molecules will work and not?
Right.
And how quickly can you get your clinical trials shortened? So your patient, basically, you need to enroll your patients. You need to manage and administer them over a period, ensure there are no side effects, etc. So all that has been able to be automated, very quick, very efficient, including your sites, right patients, right time, and so on and so forth. So, and the analysis of safety and efficacy is also accelerated. So that is the major boon, if you will, of being able to analyze large sets of data and coming up with analysis quickly.
Yeah. And do you think there's a concern around like, well, the bottlenecks for speed is coming from the regulatory side, that, it's great that you could, prepare all your data in half the time, but I'm going to take the same amount of time as a regulator to review all the data. Is there any concerns there? Or has most of the lead time come from the actual experiment driving?
Correct. It is more of
Okay.
that. And also, I mean, they'll have some back and forth, right?
Okay.
But I guess the good thing is now increasingly regulators are also embracing this change.
Are they? Okay.
They are embracing the fact that now AI embedded devices, AI enabled molecules, etc., they will be the future. So for instance, I mean, there are these startups like in silico medicine, etc. They have 30 odd programs that are in motion right now. One of them is already finished a phase 2A clinical trial. And then there are 10 plus that have been given an approval to exercise those on humans. So there are enough and more use cases that are coming up, which are very promising. So where I was going with this,
Yes,
coming back to the point
the
about
landscape of like of M&A, right?
correct. So look, I mean, I think over the last 5 years or so, if I think about M&A from an AI perspective, they've been roughly around 300 odd deals.
Okay.
And the total value has been around 60 to 70 billion.
Okay.
So it's
But
not
most like life sciences focused?
correct,
Yeah.
life sciences focused. Now,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal, right?
Okay.
I mean, when it comes to, actual life sciences.
Okay.
And also the other key element here is most of the funding is coming from venture capitalists. They are investing heavily in startups. In fact, I mean, there was a stat saying, more than 45% of VC funding across industry is actually going into AI-based startups as of last year. So that's a big amount. So that is the scale, that is the nature of M&A at the moment. So what's happening is all the big pharma companies, instead of trying to acquire, they're getting into partnerships with some of the big tech players or the startup
Right. And
companies.
is this because the smaller startups now have deeper pockets? So like they have a bit more leverage, or like, yeah.
Or the other way around. So
Okay.
everybody's placing their bets and being cautious because they don't want to buy it outright. Instead, they
Okay.
said, okay, let's get into a
Oh,
partnership.
really? Okay. So it's the big
Let's see
pharma
what
companies
it-
are being a bit more cautious and just like,
Correct.
got it. Okay.
Correct. And then basically what happens is there'll be milestone payments. So the moment a particular drug actually clears an FDA approval and is about to be commercially launched, that is when the partnership will unlock some more value for the startups and so on and so forth.
Okay. Got
So
it.
that's how the deals are being structured today.
Got it.
So that's the lay of the land with regards to M&A.
Way more partnership deals, less like,
Correct.
pure play outright buyouts.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, the biggest deal that happened last year was around 700 odd million.
Okay. Okay. Which is like modest
Which is
relative to
very
like
modest.
typical
related-
M&A space.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's the lay of the land.
Got it.
Now, flipping it the other way around. So how are we as
Yeah.
consulting firms
How's it helping
leveraging
your workflows? Yeah.
AI with regards to M&A? I mean, so we've got some really fascinating tools within EY, and we've called it as competitive edge and so on and so forth. So basically, right from being able to scan potential targets in the market for potential buyers to say which ones would fit in with your portfolio or which would be a right fit for your market or your customer or therapeutic area, whatever. So we've got capability of that nature. So it allows you to scan and identify. Then the whole process of, once you start off your diligence or due diligence, as we call it, right? So the initial draft of a due diligence can actually come through at the back of an AI application that we have developed to say, okay, what are some of the areas that you may need to poke or probe further and what areas are clear? So I think you're good. So that further accelerates our capability to diligence some of the assets in a much better turnaround time with higher quality because now we have more time to do the so what analysis, which is crucial.
Can you speak to like any real world examples of AI driving value in the life sciences or MedTech today? Because again, I guess some of this is promises to come, i.e. like in drug discovery and so forth. But like, where have you seen value being added today? Or perhaps is even the drug discovery already here? And I'm just like, and I was just misinformed on that.
No, so yeah, we talked about drug discovery, so I'll park that for now. So yeah, some real life use cases. So I think let's touch upon this image analysis, right? So a year ago when AI, Gen AI hype was still at its infancy and we were still trying to understand what it is and so on, one of the NHS hospitals in Scotland, they used an algorithm called MIA, Mammography Image Assessment. And they tested it on some 30,000 odd breast cancer potential scans and patients, right? To see as to what it is. And the good news then was the algorithm was able to identify 11 additional cases of potential cancerous cells, which a human eye had missed out. Now, that was at a very early stage. And now imagine after 12 months, we've continuously analyzed and bettered the entire algorithm and so on and so forth. And you cascade that to, multiple thousands and millions of patients, then you're going to get much superior answers, right? So as a result, what has happened is your ability to detect and diagnose some of these fatal diseases, right? I mean, it's improved. So that's one very real life use case. Now, second is, and this is from another startup platforms called Q.AI, right? So they've got an imaging analysis thing for tuberculosis, which I think I mentioned. So typically what would take roughly 3 weeks plus to detect, diagnose, and so on and so forth. Now, because of this new AI platform, that time has gone down to a couple of hours. So huge 90% reduction. And similar is the case when it comes to your chest x-rays, identifying where could be potential issues or your fracture x-rays or MRI
And
scans,
is
etc.
this in
is all
deployment
real.
today? Is already in deployment?
All real.
Okay.
All in
In deployment,
deployment
yes.
being used,
Nice.
right? So this is real life.
Amazing.
And even more so, and this is classic, which I picked up at the BioAsia Summit that I went to, right? So there's this one hospital for gastroenterology in India called AIG. So they have hospital beds embedded with AI capabilities, etc. Wherein what happens is whenever they used to have an issue wherein because patients that were admitted into the hospital were sick and sometimes they would run into some cardiac arrest at the last minute and then the emergency units had to struggle to bring them back, right? And they would lose life and so on and so forth. So what they did is they enabled these hospital beds and they created an algorithm saying they picked up 7 vitals or levers or biomarkers, whatever you want to call them, and said, look, if any 5 of these breach a certain threshold, they should inform and notify the emergency unit, who would quickly come and take care of these patients half an hour before they would enter into any arrest.
Yeah.
And as a result, they've saved lives. Again, another real example. So these absolutely make it real, right? I mean, the promise is so real, so fundamental, and it's so revolutionary and game changing. So anyone sitting on the fence, I'd highly suggest that,
Yeah, you get
guys,
off
I
it.
mean, you need to be, get out there, understand, be aware of what's happening. And then it's a matter of, making it a strategic imperative
Yeah.
and then just moving on. And
Nice.
therefore, I said, the choice is there for the big companies as well as small to say, look, either you stand by, let the world take, as in, others pick up AI and then run with it, or therefore it's embrace or perish. I mean, that is
Nice.
where I was coming
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually like that. So we touched briefly on like again changes in like M&A deal structure. Again, I guess pre-post AI. But if you just like step one level above that to like bringing it home a bit to consulting itself. Have you seen any changes, or are you anticipating any changes in perhaps like the models of engagement that consulting firms have with their partners and their clients? Whether again moving away from time-based engagement models to like outcome-based, or like any other like high-level changes you expect?
Yeah, I mean, so definitely, I mean, things could change and evolve in the future. But for now, I mean, it's early days wherein it is not really making a huge impact. Conversely, though, I mean, so how we, because ultimately, see, I mean, what I believe, see, consulting is always a people business. There's always a human, and it is all about the softer elements, being able to understand the dynamics and what is it that the clients are really facing a problem with, and being able to address that. Now, how we are leveraging AI to support that is by helping us out with our prep work, with our homework, to see as to, have we considered all the key ingredients or elements before we address this particular area? What are some of the gaps that we may have in our analysis? That's one. And second, it is also about reviewing our work to say that, okay, the client has asked for X, we have produced Y. Does Y give everything that X wanted? And the uh, the applications, the AI tools are smart enough to tell you, hey, by the way, you've answered most of it, but these are 2 things that you haven't addressed.
Okay.
So do you want to go back?
And is this like maybe looking at the SOW plus the deliverable?
RFPs,
Okay, the RFP,
RFPs,
okay.
etc. So it's a really cool way to
Nice.
leverage the capability of AI, because this gives you compare and contrast capability, which is unique. And also now, I mean, this is so powerful and so enlightening, right? So I was speaking to one of my clients the other day, and she mentioned as to how, someone in our team is also leveraging AI in a ways is to coach themselves to say as to how do you deal with some challenging stakeholders so that you put your point across in a way that will land well, given the characteristics and the other factors. So those are some of the ways that we are leveraging AI internally. And I guess I'm positive, I think it'll evolve as and when this becomes mainstream. But for now, see, I mean, I think one thing is very clear from a principal point of view, there will be a human in the loop, whether we stick with the existing version of AI, the agentic AIs, etc. And there will come a time in the near future, as I'd say, wherein, I think we'll get to the next level, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess maybe like that change from again like counting by the hour to again be more tied to the outcome. Like, would you say like that perhaps is a move in the positive direction?
Absolutely.
Because again the alignment is there, and also like in hopefully value capture as well is also higher.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No brainer.
Yeah.
Absolutely no brainer. I mean, if we are able to spend more time in the value add and the additional analysis and being able to think through all the other elements, and all the quick churning analysis and admin work is sorted out quickly for you, then why wouldn't you?
Yeah. I like that. Okay, cool. So again, still on like the future of like consulting with AI, what do you think has changed and has stayed the same since the introduction of like Gen AI in the consulting world? So let's start with like change. Then we'll go to stay the same.
Well, I mean,
That's like me looking like 3 years back. Let's call it 2-3 years back versus now.
yeah, I guess, I mean, that's what. So, I mean, if basically, I mean, we are leveraging it for, some productivity purposes. So, which is positive, which we just discussed. The other thing I would say is, especially on the program management side of things, now we've got some AI platforms wherein once you feed in the plan, then and then all the other parameters that are required, it'll allow you to keep track of, how are you progressing, what are some of the risks or
Really? And is that something the entire project team uses, or like individuals use to like task track for themselves?
no. So once you set it up and configure it, it'll be available for the whole team, including across geographies and stuff. So that is very powerful, right? And then that also gives you capability to capture everything in one place. So no matter when a client asks you as to what are some of the things that I need to bear in mind, then immediately you get a risk or an issue sheet and boom, you're talking to them. So that's very powerful. And then it goes one step forward, which is about, especially for transformation programs, how do you track the benefits and the value that is delivered? So you put in a business case saying by doing this, you're going to save X amount of dollars and stuff. But have you really delivered? How are you going to capture that value? So there are these, again, different frameworks that we're putting in place using some AI platforms that allow you to track the end-to-end view and so on and so forth. So
Right. So okay. So like obviously like yeah, time savings have definitely improved. Or again, giving you back more time to do more high value work, and also like helping with some of the program management, as you said. Any other like big changes? And if not, we can move over to like what has stayed the same, 3 years back versus today.
I mean, what has stayed the same is, yeah, I mean, we still deal
Yeah,
with our
it's still people. It's
still
people
people
business. Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
We still go and shake hands with them, have those working sessions, have those coffee chats to see what is the real dynamic as to why, what is the root cause. We may know a lot of symptoms, but the root cause is something that only comes through these informal chats over a coffee or a drink or a dinner or something. So that's remained the same. And I guess that will continue to remain same.
The natural next question to ask, which is advice for the next, generation of consultants, maybe like people again from a similar background, more technical, looking to get into it, or maybe not even. Yeah, just having like broad advice. Obviously, entering into an AI first world in consulting, and when you're having like broad strokes, like advice as to be a specialist or be a generalist or investing in this or that skill, you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it is non-linear in a way. There's no one path that gets you, right? I mean, different paths will get you to where you want to be. But I guess broadly, see, I think benefit of hindsight. So one thing that I picked up in this consulting journey is when you get started in your early days of consulting, try and do a variety of competencies or get yourself plugged into a breadth of areas so that you get to see what each one entails, because each one will give you a different flavor of a business or of a competency or of an area, right? And that will then allow you to say as to which ones really resonate with you as an individual. Some of us could be really good with numbers, and finance is something that gets them excited. Others could be really good at supply chain, and some others on the commercial side. That's what gets them excited, right? So pick your area that really excites you, and then you double down on that. So I'd say first at least a couple, 2 to 3 years, get yourself, the breadth. Then, so basically, then you get into the depth. So then you become a T-shaped consultant, as we call it.
Oh,
So
okay.
breadth
Yeah.
and depth.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, and automatically as you go through the journey, then you will build relationships in certain sectors. You'll be wedded to some of them. And then that automatically allows you to gravitate towards that sector. So then you become a sector focused, a competency focused individual. And that is what increasingly most of our consulting companies are gravitating towards.
Nice. Nice. I like that. Okay, so on a closing note here, we like to end on this one often, which is if you could embed like one AI capability into your teams with the projects you're running today. Let's make it hyper specific. What do you think those would be? Again, if you could wave a magic wand and enable, maybe like again, help me like make this deck end to end or something magical like that. What do you think that capability would be?
I mean, I'd go very basic actually. I mean, because I'm seeing this on a regular basis, right? So I think my magic wand would be that almost the entire teams, they should be educated, basic level of understanding on AI capabilities, the do's, the don'ts, the what's, the hows. And that will then allow us to take the entire firm in a direction. Currently, what's happening is there's a lot of inertia and resistance to change. So not everyone is embedded into along with their day jobs, because some, as you said, right, some of these things are yet to materialize. So you're not seeing the benefits upfront, right? So we need to change that mindset. We need to get everybody going through this journey. Now, I use my example every time I talk to folks. It's like, look, 2 years ago, nobody came with a training program for me, right? I got interested. I equipped myself. I learned it every evening I would just sit in front of my TV, switch on some podcasts, some videos,
Really?
training
Yeah.
videos.
There wasn't any like top-down directive or like course or something? No.
So it was just self-interest to say, oh yeah, I mean, this is a cool thing, so let me get into what it is all about.
Nice.
And because I had my data background, so that
Yeah.
helped. So I looked at all the training videos from Google to IBM to whatnot, right? And then one thing led to another, and then I worked with some like-minded individuals within our teams who were really interested in this space. And then one thing led to another. So I think it is about, one, be curious, as you always say, and then be excited about this, because this is here to stay, is my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So the sooner you get into, the better.
Amazing. Well, that's the perfect place to end. Appreciate you taking the time today. It's been
pleasure.
great.
Lovely to meet you.